I feel like I've been in my own church for a lifetime. Actually, I have been in my own church for a lifetime. I've been a minister for 5 years. My husband's been a minister for 25 years. But I'm a minister in the church that I grew up in. So be careful, children at the back. Be careful. Who knows what God's got for you? Actually, I'm the 4th of 6 generations in my family who've lived in exactly the same 4 streets in East Ham. And I'm the 4th of those 4 generations of women who've been part of one church in East Ham. So I'm either incredibly unimaginative or one of those people for whom mission is about staying put. Mission can be about moving, and it can be about staying put. And so over the 52 years that I've been part of my church, the church has changed. And churches do, don't they? And sometimes it's a bit disorientating what is happening to the church. I was reminded of a story. Are you okay for a story? I was reminded of a story, and it was told to, I'll move a bit. I was told to me by an Australian friend, and he said that there was a British farmer who was taken out to visit an Australian ranch. So there was the long flight to Australia. Never done that one. Anyone done it? All day, right? Yeah, all day. Long flight to Australia, and then you have to get on another plane, a little biplane, and many hours into this second flight, the British farmer turned around and said to the Australian rancher, "This is a very long flight. When do we arrive at your ranch?" And the rancher turned around and said to the farmer, "Oh, you've been over my land for the last hour. We fly for another hour to get to the farmhouse." And the British farmer just couldn't imagine it. And he looked out the window and he thought, there's something that's disturbing me about this landscape. And after a while, he realised what it was. And he said to the rancher, "Where are the fences?" And the Australian rancher turned to him and he said, "Fences? Here? In a place this big, you can't have any fences, but we have really good wells." The passage in Ephesians that we're looking at describes a Jesus-centred church. And sometimes the landscape of the church, the terrain of the church, can really change. And we can start to feel like, oh, this is not what we remember. But this passage has been so helpful to me, particularly over the changes of COVID, because it says this: if you've got Jesus at the centre of your church, you're fulfilling the plan of God, which is that we would be the body of Christ. It's a beautiful passage, isn't it? What a beautiful picture of the church. What a vision. How vast that vision is. Church is not just a few people meeting together on a Sunday. Praise God, it is also that. But it's God's plan to save the world, the planet Earth. And there is no plan B. There's a vast vision of the church. What does it mean to have Jesus at the centre of the church? Well, as I looked through that passage in Ephesians, I could see a few things were happening. And it's all about Christ. It's all about Jesus Christ. Christ gives gifts to the church. The church is Jesus' Christ's body on earth. Christ is the complete standard of Christian maturity. That's the example we could follow. Christ is the head of the church, and the word means source of the church. Jesus organises the church and puts us all together. Jesus is the one who helps us grow healthy. Healthy in God, robust in love. You can't have a church without Jesus Christ at the centre. Or can you? what else might we be tempted to put at the centre of the church? Well, the first one is, as Westerners, those that might identify with that, we can put our own ego at the centre of the church, because in our culture, it's all about us, isn't it? Happiness is about having my needs met. People I interact with, it's about what I can get out of that. It's all about me. And sometimes, culturally, the church has suffered from this. And we've been part of it when we've been in a church and said, well, what am I getting out of this? What am I getting? Are my needs being met? That's not the intention of God's plan for us. Our culture shapes us to think of ourselves as individuals with rights. The Bible is totally different, isn't it? The picture of the church here is of a body with parts that are intrinsically necessary to each other. Can you imagine if I walked into the building this morning and there was a severed leg on the floor? You'd be outraged. How gruesome! A dismembered part of the body. But we live in an age of dismembered parts of the church, where people say, well, that's not the right church for me, and that's not the right church for me, and they dismember the body of Christ by removing themselves, because being part of a church means that you have to think in a countercultural way. And I loved it this morning when I came in. Not only was your church warm, there were so many people working to make this a comfortable space. And it's just so lovely to see that spirit of doing things to create a space for other people to come into and enjoy is still part of your church. It's lovely. There'll be people serving food and refreshments, microphones and the music, and I really love all the drums. I just need to introduce this into my church, because when that music started, you all joined in. Nobody was sitting back stage. It was more like table. It was more like fellowship. It was beautiful, and you don't realise how precious it is to be surrounded by Christians who are mature enough not to think about what do I need to get, but to think about how do we gather. God bless you if you're serving, making space for others to come into. If you're remembering the body of Christ. Do you know what I'm saying? Reaching out to this one. Come on, I've got you. There with this one. Come on. It's not about you. It's not about me. The call for membership, and lovely that you've got a members meeting, is completely against the Western mindset. It's more like the African mindset. I am because we are. So being a church today is being in a strange landscape. To give up some of your ideas of individualism and to be part of something that's far bigger than you, but means you have to de-center yourself. I find it difficult to de-center my life. But this verse here is about Jesus being at the centre and holding everything together, the well. That means we don't need so many fences. Second one came to mind was, what could we put at the centre of the church if it's not Jesus? And that is the church. I'm on a number of Facebook groups for ministers, and it's amazing how much they talk about the church. Church growth, church decline, church wages, church buildings, church. It can be necessary, but it can be overdone. I wonder sometimes if I'm part of churchianity and not Christianity. So much we focus on this vehicle that God has given us, and less on Jesus. And sometimes, when churches do that, when it's about the church and not about Jesus, they get really competitive. There's a story worth repeating about Baptist Church that had a mission outreach week, and they'd put a lot of time and energy and effort into this outreach week. And to be honest, at the end of it, there wasn't much to show for it. And so the leaders got together and they said, well, we put a lot of time, energy, money. We really gave it everything we had and nobody came. And one leader piped up and said, well, it wasn't that bad. The Methodists didn't do any better down the road. And if this church is the centre of the church, we start to think and speak in terms of other churches being competitors to us. The kingdom of God is a vast landscape. It doesn't need fences. It's got great wells. Sometimes we put the personality of a leader at the centre of the church, or the style of worship, or we think if we just do this magic programme, everyone will flock in and be discipled and saved. And we get so disappointed. If that's where you're at, go back to Jesus being the centre of your life. Spend time with Jesus. Just receive the love of Jesus. Every day, soak that up for, a few minutes, that you're loved, you're loved, you're loved. Jesus loves you. Don't make the church the centre of the church. Third one, and I don't want to offend anyone, I don't want to be misheard here, is that I often wonder if we don't, particularly as Protestant Christians, put doctrines at the centre of the church. The right belief. Belief very much matters. But Jesus said, it's love that's at the centre of my community. Look at how many times Jesus said, love one another. Love one another. By this, all people will know that you're my disciples if you love one another. Again and again and again, Jesus reminds people. It's love. And as you read through Ephesians at the end there, why is Jesus doing this work at building the body? Well, it's so you'll be healthy in God and robust in love. It's about healthy maturity is being able to know that you're loved and to give love. That's the centre of the church. Over my lifetime, churches have been divided and put fences up over all kinds of doctrines. I mean, early on it was creation and evolution. And people would leave churches because they don't preach that or they do preach this. It's been women in leadership. I hope you're over that, otherwise I'm in a bit of trouble here, aren't you? But that was a big fence, wasn't it? Churches that women are allowed to use the gifts that they've got on, churches that they're not. It was a huge fence, a big dividing line. I mean, there's been so many, haven't there? Issues of inclusion, issues of how we read the Bible. When Jesus spoke about dividing sheep and goats, if you want to talk about division, it wasn't about a theology exam, was it? Look in Matthew 25. Jesus says, these are the sheep. I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was homeless. You gave me a room. I was shivering. You gave me clothes. I was sick and you stopped to visit. I was in prison and you came to me. The Jesus-centred church is never too busy to show love in practical ways, especially to the last and the least and the lost. It's never too busy having an argument about doctrine that it can't love the people that are within it and outside. You know, I hope I'm not offending you because I know belief matters and doctrine matters. But St. Paul put it even stronger, didn't he? He said, if you're speaking without love, you're an annoying noise. That's right, isn't it? You're a sounding gong and a clanging cymbal. If you're speaking without love, you can have the wisdom of angels, but it's nothing. It's worthless. It's annoying. What you're bringing is disruptive. It's not melodic. It's disruptive. Shut up if you're speaking without love. And so many debates that you hear around doctrine and belief where people are guarding a fence that in a few years' time won't even be there anymore. And they're so passionate about guarding this little thing that they think is so important. And God is wider and wilder and out there above any fence that you can put up. He's the other side. There's Jesus. Put a fence up between the good people and the bad people. There's Jesus on the other side. Put a fence up between the right people and the wrong people. There's Jesus. Crossing the fences. Inviting people to the well of life. I don't know how that looks in your community. But if it's not about love, wouldn't it be great when we start members' meetings and we say, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Why are we fixing the building? Why are we doing this? And the answer is because it's about Jesus' love. We want to create a place that people can be loved. We want to create a place where we experience God's love and then we're flowing with it. We want wells. We want this to be a well and me to be a well and you to be a well. It's about Jesus' love. If that's the answer, then you've got it sorted, isn't it? I'm coming into land now. What is church about? It's about Jesus. It's about his love. It's about becoming more like him by becoming more loving, more audacious in our love, recognizing that we serve in love. The Church of Jesus people serve through love, not through duty or because somebody's twisted their arm. I love the first bit where it talks about all the different gifts in the church. The apostles and the prophets and the evangelists and the shepherds and the teachers. No one person, I know God sent you an angel, but no one person has got all of those gifts. No one person could be apostle, prophet, evangelist, teacher, shepherd. That means you are. That means you are. Because God's put all those gifts in here. Some of you have got the apostle spirit, the going out spirit, the taking new land spirit. When the church does things, they say, why don't we do it outside? I came to one of your lovely, it was the leaving do for Jane, and it was outside. And there was food, and I could tell some people were like, this is where we should be, outside. Let's go out. Apostles, hope we got some. You probably know who they are. They're always wanting to push out into the new ground. And some of you are the prophets. What you really want to do is listen to God. And you love it when other people listen to God. And you say, let's pray, I want to hear God. And when you're really in a tricky situation, that's the person you want to pray for you because they can hear God. And you think, if I can just hear God like that person, the prophet in the church wants to hear about God. I don't know who that is, but there's one of you here at least. There's never a church without that gift. Don't squash it, will you? There's the evangelist who gathers people. They're the one that you go around their house at any time, there's always the kettle on and there's food, and they gather people and they pull people in. They run the film club, the Mosaic Club. They go, come on, come together. I just love to be in a crowd. They're the evangelists. I hope you got some of them. The shepherds care. They care. Somebody's not here. The shepherd knows. They care. And the teacher, they want to do it right. They want to show us how to live well. They want to do it right. That's you. That's you. You don't have to wait for a pastor to come. You've already got the gifts to be the Jesus-centered church. In fact, when you get a full-time minister, you might lose gifts. Do you know that? Because you've got the gifts. You are Jesus' plan for this community. It's you. You can't wait for somebody else. Please find out. Jesus loves you. He's given you gifts. It will be a pleasure to use them. The Jesus-centered church people mature together. They speak love to each other because sometimes we mess up. But you can correct my life if you love me. They become more like Jesus. They're very diverse. What a vision of the church. I just wanted to end with a little moment of silence. And I want your first thought, if I can lead and direct you in this. Where have you experienced Jesus' love through this church? Just bring it to mind. Where have you experienced Jesus' love through this church? Where have it flown to you? Somebody cared for you. Somebody taught you. They prepared a space for you to be welcome. They listened to you. They corrected you. They loved you enough to speak the truth to you. Bring it to mind. There's a well in your life, and it's Jesus. And there are people with buckets on long ropes, and they dip those buckets down and they draw up life for you. And when you needed it, they were there. Let that gratitude and thankfulness flow up. They've looked after your kids. They've sat with your mum. They bought you food. They met your need. They cried when you cried. They came to your party. There's a well of love. Be thankful for the church. Now I want to ask, let's our next thought be, Jesus, where are we getting in the way? Where are we not contributing to a Jesus-centred church? Where have we made it all about me? Where do we hold back when we could give? Where do we serve but it's gritted teeth? Jesus, would you come and just show us where we get in the way of knowing you at the centre? And Lord, I pray that this church will be vast in its vision of your love for this community, confident in the well that's at the centre of this church. People with many buckets, like the people with many instruments, coming down to draw up love, to spill out. That this would be a well-watered vineyard, a fruitful place, a restful, beautiful, fruitful place where we will grow together, healthy in God, robust in love. In your name I pray. Amen.